and welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, I'm Becca and I share this channel with my best friend Sophie. So I'm training to be an accountant and Sophie is training to be a lawyer. So if either of those professions interest you, make sure you subscribe to our channel and like this video and comment down below if you want as well. Just let us know what you're doing. If you've got any questions for us, if you've got any interview and assessment centre advice as well, it'd be really helpful. So please share. So today's video is all about Big Four assessment centres. So I've done my fair few and so have my friends. So I just wanted to give all that knowledge to you in case you had an assessment centre at the Big Four as well. So I really hope you enjoy. As always, in the description, I'll leave the timestamps for each of the sections of the video if you're only looking for a certain section. But firstly, I just wanted to cover quickly what an assessment centre is. So basically, this is part of the graduate or the normal recruitment process in the Big Four and also in other jobs as well. So it's usually in the offices that you actually work, and this is the final or the penultimate, as in the second to last stage of the recruitment process usually. So there's about 10 to 15 people that come for the day, and then obviously you've got all the people that actually work at the firm that are in HR and the department you're going to work in as well. So they will put you through some exercises and different tasks, and they usually represent the kind of thing you'd be doing in the job, just so they can see what kind of skills you have and how you perform if you were to be in the job. And also just to note, the other people that are with you aren't your direct competition, especially in the big firms. They usually have loads of spaces and you just have to meet a minimum criteria to be able to get the role. So don't see everyone else around you as competition. And sometimes I know one of my friends did a PwC assessment centre and they sent half of the people home at lunchtime, and then if you got through, obviously you're doing really well, and then you'd hear at the end whether you've actually got the role or not, but I'll go into that later. So what do you get up to on the day? Well, there are a variety of exercises that they can give you. The first of which, and the one that comes to mind firstly with me, is a group discussion. So with mine, they sat us all in a room and we were all facing each other in a circle, and they had a sheet of paper with information on for us, and each of us had different information. So we were asked to collaborate as if we were working as a team, and basically to just discuss what was on the pieces of paper and try and come to a conclusion with the scenario that we had. And around the room there were also loads of seats, and all of the different employers in there were looking at directly one or multiple of us and seeing how we collaborated with each other, whether we were asking questions, whether we were just keeping to ourselves, who was looking after time management, who was being the leader of the group. So they're always looking for these things, and it doesn't matter if you're not the one doing everything. But yeah, group discussions are definitely one of the top things they always do at assessment centres. So next on the list is written assessments. This could be an English test or a maths test, or just reading a passage and then being able to write your answer. So sometimes they do these before the assessment centre as well, but sometimes they like to make sure that it's actually you completing the answers too, so they give it to you on the day as well. So I know that for EY, for example, they did a really easy maths test just to make sure it's nowhere near as hard as the initial assessments were, but just to make sure that you can perform under pressure and also you are at the level that you say you are. So next we've got a presentation. So I definitely have had to do my fair share of these, including for my job that I actually have working at the Big Four. It's usually to do with your role and a bit about the industry in your role. So you'll usually be given a bit of time to prepare before. Either you'll get the question before you go into the assessment centre, or they'll tell you in the morning and then give you half an hour or whatever to prepare. So don't worry about going in blind. And you can use your phone, or if you've brought your laptop, obviously you could use that as long as you ask and they say it's okay. And sometimes you're given written information as well, a pamphlet of information that you can go through and take notes from. So the key things for the presentation, I'd say, is be confident with your delivery. Make sure you're always looking up and not just reading off the page. If you are preparing before and you've got a PowerPoint, then make sure that you're not just reading off the PowerPoint slides. I think it's always good to have flashcards, to be honest with you, just because it can be a bit baffling on the day and you may run out of things to say or forget where you were going and you start to panic. So it's good to have them, but you don't need them by any means. So if you just have them there as a safety thing more than anything, but I definitely say make sure you're looking up rather than just reading straight off. Okay, the next type is a role play exercise. So it's usually one-on-one, so you'll have one person that's doing the role play from the company that you're applying for, and then obviously you, and then there's usually another person taking notes in the corner as well, and they usually discuss your feedback of how you did after that session, as in like immediately after, so you get immediate feedback for that. But basically in the role play exercise, it's usually like there's a difficult client or a difficult member of your engagement team, and how would you handle the situation. So you're given a bit of information before, and then you go in, do the role play, and just try your best, be yourself, and make sure you're, you know, always positive. Think about what they'd want you to say, but not so much that you're like reading off a script, and not so much that you're like sounding like a robot. Make sure you're being you, but just how you would handle the situation and how you think someone should handle a situation. Okay, next, similar to like the written maths test that I mentioned earlier, there's something called an E-tray exercise. So that's basically the same as the assessments you were doing before, as in your application. So for example, you could have like a passage that says, you know, you've got all these deadlines, you need to do this, 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 and this. What do you do first? Write an email. You've got 30 minutes to like draft all your emails and send them off. And they might have like different scenarios depending on what you click and things like that. So that's usually done on a computer. So I definitely had to do a lot of those before assessment centres, like in order to get my assessment centres for quite a few. And the key things for that to remember are like time management. So make sure you're hitting the deadlines and making sure that you're prioritising the most important pieces of work first, and also making sure that, you know, your business language is all correct, and that's something you can definitely practice. Make sure you're signing off the email correctly, putting like a correct subject in it and things like that. Next is like timed exercises. This could be any of them that are stuck to a certain deadline. So you could have, for example, half an hour to complete this task. Make sure you stick to the deadline is obviously the key thing. Make sure you get all your key points in first. I personally like to plan a lot of things before, so I'll like have like a 5-minute plan to write everything down, and then I'll do it. Obviously, if you're allowed to research, that's great and stuff too, but just make sure you stick to deadlines and don't run over, and always give yourself more time at the end to like write up an email or anything than you think, because you'll probably will run over. Okay, then we've got like a formal interview. So this could be after the assessment centre is in the final stage, or it could be during the day. Quite a few I've had are like during the day, and it could be like a partner interview, it could be like a senior associate, could be a director, just anyone could interview you basically. So make sure you're prepared, you've done lots of interview prep. There are loads of places online where you can find interview prep, but yes, that is often part of an assessment centre. And then my last activity for assessment centres that's really common for both Big Four and generally is just like the informal / networking kind of events. So this could be like a lunch, it could be a dinner, a breakfast, or it could just be meeting everyone, all the candidates in the foyer before you guys all start your assessment centre. So the key things for this, which I'll go through in more detail later, are, you know, be nice to everyone, obviously, be careful what you say and be careful who could be listening. Make sure you are being really chatty and make a good first impression and a lasting impression as well. Be really positive and enthusiastic and like willing to learn in everything, even between your activities. And like I said, I'll go into more detail about that later. So in terms of how they score you for the day, usually you have, maybe I'll like put like a mock sheet on the screen here. So usually you have, it's out of like 10 or out of 100 or whatever, and for each category, and it's usually to do with like their competencies. So that could be to do with, you know, communication, teamwork, working to deadlines, building relationships. Yeah, it's usually that down one side, and then like along the top it would be like all the different tasks that you're doing, and they'd mark you out of 10. And so say the whole thing was out of 100, then they might say, okay, if you get over 75 then you're in, sort of thing. Obviously it completely depends. If they absolutely love you, but you did awfully in one task, maybe they would consider that, but I wouldn't worry too much about the way they mark it, but that is the general gist of what I've heard anyway, of how people mark it. Okay, next let's move on to preparation. So before the assessment centre, what do you have to do? Well, there are quite a few things. Firstly, you've got to think about what they're looking for. So you've got to read the job description again, read where they've sent you any emails about the day and what you're going to be doing during the day, just so you're familiar and you're aware of everything. Make sure you look on their website, look for their competencies, like I said, because that's probably what they'll be marking you against. So make sure, you know, if it's like time management, collaboration, teamwork, any of that, make sure you're really hitting those spots in all the activities that you do. But obviously the main focus is on being yourself and, you know, being able to do the task properly, but in the back of your mind, it's good to have. And then next thing is dress code or what to wear. Obviously this completely varies depending on whether it's like a regional or a London office, whether like each of the different firms within the Big Four, completely depends. And they pretty much always say on the sheet, you know, like smart casual or wear a suit and things like that. So make sure you're looking out for that. I personally always think it's better to go overdressed rather than underdressed. If you're unsure, that always contact the recruitment person or like whoever sent you the email, the student recruitment team. Like always contact them if you're not sure what to wear though, because they'll be very happy to help. I think for my assessment centres I usually wore like a shirt and smart trousers, and then some loafers and sometimes like a blazer or like a smart jacket or something like that. I think it's always good to wear like a blouse or a shirt, or if you're a guy then maybe like a shirt without a tie, but always take a tie in your pocket just in case everyone else is wearing one, then you can quickly sort it out. But yeah, I don't think that's like the main concern. As long as you look smart and no trainers and no jeans, you're good. In terms of actually what to take on the day, water is a massive one. You always need a water bottle, because like when you're doing presentations and talking a lot, your mouth will go really dry. Make sure you've got a pen and paper as well, because a lot of activities will require that, and usually they provide it, but in case they don't, in case they like are in a different location and not their office or something, sometimes you have to provide your own. It's always good to have one spare anyway. You probably won't need it, but I think it's always good to take your CV as well. Always good to have. And like I said, you probably won't need it. They'll probably have your application printed out and everything ready, but just in case. Also, they'll probably tell you like a list of things to bring, so if whatever's on there, make sure you've got it. They might tell you to bring a laptop, or they might just say you can use your phones, so I'd always take like some sort of electronic device that you can Google things on. Obviously saying that, make sure that your phone is on silent or on do not disturb or whatever when you're in the assessment centre, because there's nothing worse or more embarrassing when you're in like an interview or something and there's like your phone starts going off with an alarm or anything like that. So yeah, just make sure, you know, everything's in check and you're prepared. Okay, and my final thing for preparation is to practice all of the skills that are required. So to do this, you can speak to your careers team if you're at university or at college or school. Speak to your friends or your peers that may have done an assessment centre in the same one or similar. See what they say came up, what they found most challenging, and maybe take notes and make sure you really focus on that kind of bit. There's also lots of websites that have like practice tasks. So if you know you're bad at presentations, maybe definitely focus on that. Same with interviews or like the group activities. Just make sure you've familiarised yourself and what you need to do, because I think that really helps elevate you as a candidate if you've got like, you're not panicking on the day basically. And the reason I said to ask your careers team is because sometimes they have subscriptions or preferred ones that they like you to use that they think are really good, for like mock assessments and sample assessments. So yeah, definitely ask, because a lot of them are free with them, whereas if not, you'd probably have to pay for them. And then finally, make sure your business writing is up to scratch, and also your like colloquialism and business talk. So for example, if you're going into like an audit interview like I was doing, make sure you know what audit is, you know, like make sure you know all the basics, and that you know how to talk with a client, you know what to write as a description, how to sign off an email and stuff like that. It can be anything. It can just be like kind regards or many thanks, but as long as you don't put like, okay, cheers, like, you know, like anything kind of informal that you probably would talk to your mates like, definitely, you know, brush up on your business language. Okay, so after the assessment centre, what do you do? Well, firstly, relax. Sometimes it can take like weeks or months for them to get back to you about whether you've got the role or not. I know for one of mine that I had, I was like 30 minutes out of the assessment centre, just about to get in the car to like drive home and stuff, and they called me and said I got it. So honestly, it varies. Other ones I've had to wait for. They've got other candidates that they're interviewing. If they've got like another assessment centre next week, it depends like how many spaces they've got to fill basically, and also how far into the process you are. So if you guys are like the first people they're interviewing or the last people they're interviewing, they're obviously going to take different amount of times to get back to you. So I really wouldn't worry if you don't hear back straight away. Just know that, you know, sometimes they can literally ring you on that day, and sometimes it can take a while. So make sure you always answer your phone to like random numbers when you are waiting for a call. Okay, so now my top tips. First one is to make sure you arrive early, especially if you're going to London. Make sure you're getting like quite a few tubes before, or the train before or something, just so you're not like panicking and rushing. Make sure you plan your trip before you go, so you know the night before, look on like Google Maps or whatever. Make sure you plan what trains you're getting and how to get there, whether you're walking, getting the bus, anything like that, because it can be a bit of a panic. Sometimes they actually put you up the night before as well, which is very kind of them, so you know, look out for things like that as well, but make sure you get there early. That is the main thing, because you don't want to be late for an assessment centre. Okay, and then in terms of like how you act on the day, make sure you're asking questions all the time. I think it's always great to be inquisitive no matter what. The same with like positivity and enthusiasm. Even if the task you think is a little bit boring, you know, it's probably to do with the job, so they want you to be enthusiastic and positive about it. Make sure you're asking questions. And then regarding like the group exercises, make sure you're involving everyone. You know, if you see someone that's not said a word yet, make sure you're the one to say, oh, well, you know, whatever, and so, like, what do you think, or what's your opinion on it? But saying that, you know, once you've asked them 1 or 2 times, if they continue to just not say anything, remember, it's not your responsibility to like look after them and get them the job, you know, that's down to them. So you need to show that you're like being a team player and you're trying to include everyone, but you don't need to, you know, focus all your efforts on them, because realistically, you know, this is your interview for you. And then on the other end of the spectrum, if someone's being like really overpowering and not letting anyone else speak, make sure you say, you know, thank you so much for your contribution, so and so, I think this, and whoever, like, what do you think? You know, make sure you're involving everyone, but don't try and compete with the person that's like overpowering, because that just makes you look bad as well. And also, you know, they're trying their hardest to show their skills, but make sure that you're not them being like in competition with them, because realistically you could both get through very easily, especially at the Big Four. You know, they usually have quite a few places to give for the graduate roles, so you're definitely not in like direct competition with everyone, as in there's like only one place. And then also on that note, make sure you're building on other people's ideas as well. Obviously if you've got a great point, fantastic, but if someone says something and you can add to it, I think it always looks good to like collaborate in that way, because then it actually shows that you're listening to others and not just thinking about yourself, which obviously in the workplace you would do. And then my final tip, I've mentioned it before, but make sure you're managing your time well. So sometimes you get given like a timetable of the day, or a timetable of like the morning, and then you'll get another one in the afternoon if they're sending people home. So make sure, you know, you're making all your appointments on time. If you sometimes, whilst they're doing like interviews or like role plays for one-on-one, they'll leave the rest of you in like the main room, and you've got to make sure, you know where you're going and that you're getting there on time. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that helps, and best of luck in your assessment centres. Let us know how it goes in the comments, and also you can follow us on Instagram. I'll put it on the screen here. Let us know if you've got any questions or if there's anything else we can help with. I really hope you've enjoyed, and thank you for watching. Bye!